Today's arrangement is using these gorgeous tropical Protea. If you want to learn how to arrange them, then join me for today's tutorial. So welcome back to today's video. Today I'm going to look at a more modern asymmetrical design using an amazing bunch of flowers that as a florist I can buy in just this format here, but you can also pick that up in some UK supermarkets, particularly Tesco and Marks and Spencer's. So if it's something that you have looked at in the shop and are unsure on what to do with it, then I'm going to create a fantastic design for you for today. Now, my first tip for today's video is to not leave your candles in direct sunlight, because this one has gone a little bit of a wonky shape. In fact, all four of them have gone in a wonky shape. So don't criticize me for the candle not being perfectly straight. It's my own fault. This one wasn't too bad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with two candles up at the back. And the main reason that I'm picking black is because they link really nicely with my container. But if I also look at the Protea, you'll see that it's got a dark centre. So the black and the centre are going to link really nicely together. And what I'm also going to do is just take a little section of the foam away so that when I place the candle in, it sits a bit lower than the first candle. So I've got candles at two different levels, creates a more interesting design. And what I'm going to do with this one, just to show you that if you don't have the plastic frog on the bottom, you can easily push the candle itself into the foam. You've just got to get it in the right place the first time so that it doesn't fall over and that it's nice and straight. So I've just cut a little bit of the foam out so that I get two levels of the candles. And if we look in the overhead camera, you'll see that I've got quite a big gap here with no foam. And that's okay, because I want to create an asymmetric design where the longer side is flowing really nicely over here. And I've got an uneven side to it. So this side is going to be short, this side is going to be long. So I've intentionally placed the floral foam to one side to make sure that I can get that clear asymmetrical shape. Underneath the foam, attached to the bottom of the container, I have a floral frog with some floral fix on the bottom. But I've also very sneakily, or I think it's very clever, I've pushed the floral foam over far enough so that it's eaten in, or it's wedged in between the lip of my container. So I think that's a particularly clever idea. So I've pushed it in, so there's no chance of it moving around. But if you are concerned that it's going to move around, you could put an extra piece of foam in here, or you could use an old piece of foam or some dry foam, or you could fill it with a bit of gravel or some glass beads, whatever you might have in your store cupboard. But I know that's quite secure in there. As a commercial florist, I would probably add an extra bit of security in there if I was going to transport it anywhere, or if I had a driver delivering it as a gift. This would look fantastic if you had a matching pair on the back of an altar on either side of a mantelpiece. It would work really well. Now, what I'm going to look for to go on the longer side of the design is one of these lovely pieces of dried, now I call this Finbos, and if you're from South Africa where this normally grows, I think it's native to South Africa, I don't know if it grows in other parts of the world, then I do apologise if I'm not pronouncing it properly, but this is what I know as Finbos, which is like our heather here in the UK. So it's flowers, greenery I was going to say, that grows in the sort of heathland or the equivalent. And I'm sure if anybody out there knows more information than me, you can correct me. And I'm going to go quite long to make use of that lovely curved material. I think we need to slide over a little bit. So it's arching beautifully downwards, and that's how I want to use it in the design. It's quite a woody textured material, so it needs to be cut at an angle, but it beautifully drapes down the side and makes a really elegant design. Now, it's definitely going to be asymmetric, so we're going to be shorter on this side here, but I'm going to make use of these longer pieces to create a lovely bit of movement there over the side. I've got 3 or 4 stems of the pink one, but I'm just going to put that to one side, and then I'm going to create some weight here at the back. And for that, I'm going to use my Fatsia. Now these are quite large, and I really do need quite a big leaf, because if you think about the size of the Protea, this one is even bigger than the one I showed you at the beginning. We need to keep it in scale, so we need to have big leaves to go with my big flowers. I might trim this off at the end. I'm going to see how that size works, and I might angle it off by cutting it straighter, because I'm thinking that might suit the style of the arrangement better. But for a minute, I'm going to leave them the length they are, and I've got 2. And if you're a traditional arranger, you might have been told that you can't use 2s. Well, you can, because you follow a different set of rules. So what we're looking to do is have this side of the arrangement at least twice the length of this section here. This area is where my flowers are going to go, so it's quite a simple design, but it's going to look really effective. And just at the back here, in this position, I'm going to use one of the lovely black. Now I'm pretty sure these are Philodendron, but I've cut these from a house plant that I have in the house. Now I could have put them at the front, but I didn't think there was much point in that, because it's just a dark burgundy, almost black colour on black. So you're not really going to see it stand out. So what I'm going to do instead is place it here at the back, just to frame the shape of my arrangement. And I've got one more. This isn't a leaf in perfect condition, but I was cutting it off to remove it from the plant because it's got a little bit of damage on it here. And after I cut it, I thought, well, save it, Sharon, and use it in an arrangement for YouTube. So what I'm going to do with this one is just place it again at the back, deep enough into the foam so it's secure in the back there. And I've got that lovely grouping and blocking of material, which is really characteristic of a more modern style of arrangement. Now in this area here is where I'm going to put my 3 focal flowers, but the smaller one is going to extend out a little bit towards the length. And these are really woody stems, so if you haven't got a good florist scissors like me, you might need to invest in some secateurs. And remember that when it's a woody stem, you need to cut it at an angle. And what I'm going to do here is place it in so that we've got a step of the flowers come in from the left to nearer the candle where my focal point is going to be. This is my bigger flower, so this is going to come nearer the candles. And then with the middle-sized flower that I've got left, I'm going to place it somewhere in the middle. Now I'm wishing I put my secateurs by my side. So let's get this big chunky stem in before we go any further. So a nice big Protea there. And the idea is that our eye travels along towards the focal point here in the middle and then stops because it doesn't have anywhere to go on this side here. My last flower is going to come somewhere here in the middle. And when you pick up this bunch in the supermarket, you might not get the same combination that I've got here. Sometimes you get 2 flowers and something different. Sometimes you get some dyed little sort of cone-shaped flowers as well. But this one I've bought from the florist supplies, from the florist wholesaler. So it's got a slightly different combination of flowers. But that's essentially the shape that I want to create. Our eye comes this way and then it comes right up to the focal point, up towards the candles, so that we don't miss anything in the design itself. And then what I'm going to do with all the extras that are in the bunch is fill in and make sure all my floral foam is covered. But because it's quite a modern design, I'm going to be putting the different textured material in a group together. Now, this one is a flat greenery. It's very similar in texture to my Fatsia there at the back. So I don't want to put it next to the Fatsia because there's not enough contrast. So I would be better putting this more heathery type material in between them to break up the 2 different textures. So let's move that a little bit further along. And with that one long stem I had, I managed to cut that into 3 different pieces. And that's going to tuck nicely underneath the Protea. Then with a longer piece of the eucalyptus, again, we'll have a look to see what shapes we've got. That one's going to work nicely. I'm going to cascade it over a little bit more so that it links really nicely with those cerise colour flowers there on the side. So we've got some longer pieces and then shorter pieces tucked in nearer the foam. And I'm going to pop that to one side and use some of the other material. So in between here, I need a contrast in texture. And this one is going to work perfectly well. It's completely different in its shape. The texture is different and the colour is different. So we will be able to see the different groups of the materials. There will be enough contrast between them to break it up and give it a more dynamic look. Now, what's good about buying a mixed bunch like this from the supermarket is that if you need to do a matching pair, you can buy 2 bunches and you know that you've pretty much got an identical set of flowers to make 2 different designs. And if you had 2 containers, you could do 2 matching pairs to go on either side of the mantelpiece at home, or if you're arranging flowers for the church, then you've got quite a dramatic arrangement that would sit beautifully at the back of the altar. So beautiful contrasts in material. Now in this section towards the top, I'm going to add in this little flower here, or probably a bract, which is a modified leaf. This is Leucodendron. You might recognise this in red and you would know it as Safari Sunset, but this is a lovely greeny, almost yellow tinged Leucodendron. This comes in lots of different colours and lots of different shape heads, but the bigger, fatter head works better towards the focal point than too far off towards the end. So I'm going to tuck these down low. It gives a lot of texture and it's going to cover that section of my foam at the front really nicely. And that typical modern design has its material grouped together rather than spread out randomly. And if we think of this having a middle, then it's different on either side. So this design becomes asymmetric. Now my front flowers, the first 2 I put in are a little close together. So what I'm going to do with this one is angle it down a little more, so the profile and the position of them is slightly different. Oh, that's really securely placed in there. And the line now is more rhythmically bringing you up to the focal point there in the front. So my remaining materials are some more of this lovely little white flower. I've got a fair few bits of the eucalyptus and a couple of bits of the Leucodendron. So now it's thinking about where I can place these for maximum impact. And I have quite a big section here of the foam that needs covering. So I think that's an ideal place to continue using this pretty little white heather type material. That's gonna really cut in there nicely to cover my foam and to give a bit of contrast around that Protea. Now I've got that basic shape in and I know where I'm heading, I can fill in this area here with some more of this lovely pink material. And I'm pretty confident in saying that this is dyed. This isn't growing in this lovely cerise colour. Its original colour is probably green or a very plain creamy white. And it's been dyed just to connect better in colour with the Protea there in the middle. Now I am contemplating adding some more of the pink in this area here. I have quite a lot of it and I don't want to waste it. So rather than finishing off with those 2 blunt leaves that my original plan was, I'm just going to extend a little bit further beyond the leaves with this pretty little pink flower. And in the section that you won't see from the front camera, but we can see from the overhead camera, I need to fill in there where you can see the floral foam. So by cutting these into smaller pieces, removing the greenery from the end as usual, I can tuck them in between the candles, and then I'm creating a link between one side of the arrangement and the other. And I'm also helping to cover that floral foam. Now what you need to always remember when you're working with a candle, particularly when you've got materials that are almost dried in their texture, is that you don't allow the candle to burn down too low, otherwise you are at risk of having a fire. And I've got one final piece which I think fits really nicely in here because it gives me that 3-dimensional look and really prevents that design becoming too flat. So for those of you that are in parts of the world where the Protea grow naturally, then I am very jealous, because this is a really tropical flower for me here in the UK. And if you're a UK florist and you haven't used this before, then we class it as a tropical flower, and you want to keep it somewhere that's warmer than your shed or your garage. So normally we would encourage you to store your flowers in a cool condition, but with the tropical flowers like Protea, they need to be somewhere a little bit warmer. If they're too cold, they turn black and they don't look particularly attractive. Now I'm just going to spend a bit of time here in the front, because where that eucalyptus is, you can still see the foam. Just a few little tweaks there. And I think one piece of the Leucodendron cut into two and placed really close to that candle at the top, so you can see this area here. I need to cover that. I think I'm going to be done. Now I do have one piece of Leucodendron left, but I don't feel that it's going to go into the arrangement anywhere. It's just going to make it quite untidy. If we look right the way down through here, hopefully the camera can pick it up, you can still see the floral foam. So what I'm going to do there is cut one length of the eucalyptus. I think I'm going to cut it into three, and I'm going to push this in really close to the foam. I don't want it seen because it's going to spoil the curved lines of that nice pink Finbos, but I definitely need to get tight enough in there that all that foam is completely covered. I don't want the pieces too long so that they take away from the effect I've created with the pink Finbos, but I think that is just right. I'm not going to add in the last couple of pieces. That would be a case of overkill and just adding them in for the sake of using them. I'm going to keep these for a different arrangement. And what I am going to do, I couldn't decide at the beginning, is I'm going to cut this off to make it a bit smaller. I feel that it's too big for the overall size of the arrangement. It's just a bit heavy there on the left-hand side. So I hope you've enjoyed this more modern style of arranging. If you're lucky enough to be in a country where they grow, then you can make a fantastic arrangement. But for those of you that are in the UK, ask your florist to get you a tropical mixed bunch with Proteas, or head off to a supermarket and you'll be able to find something very similar. So I think that works fantastically well. The black candles link beautifully with the container at the bottom. I haven't used too much greenery and material at the front to hide that container, and it looks quite striking and quite modern. I am going to fill in the back because I do have quite a large piece of foam that I haven't covered, but I'm not going to use that nice greenery from the mixed bunch. I'll use something a bit more generic that's in the studio. And please subscribe to the channel because it's really important to help us grow. If you haven't already, hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial, and ask as many questions as you want in the comment box. Thank you as ever for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.